Hello! Let's continue the series of our visiting tutorials. We are visiting Natalia Sorokina again and getting to know a new pattern. Hello! I'd like to recommend you this pattern. Many of you have already seen it, both on Lena Tищенko's site and on the site Strana Мастеров. Many of you have repeated it already. I believe for skilled weavers it is not a problem. As for the beginners, they have a lot of questions. So Lena has asked me to shoot this tutorial provided with some explanations. So, let's get to know how to start weaving this pattern, how many tubes you need to weave, the way your stripes will lay. We're going to try telling you about all these nuances. So, for this pattern we need an odd number of tubes. On what exactly the number of the poles depends, I will tell you later when we get to know the pattern well enough. So we start weaving the pattern with 4 tubes from the very beginning. The tubes are of contrast colors. With the yellow tubes I'm going to weave in the technique of printed cotton. Here I have glued them both to a pole. Above them, to the next pole, I glue 1 tube of the basic color, blue ones, and to the next pole another tube of the same color. With these 2 blue tubes I'm going to weave rope. We will weave the pattern in circle, with no gluing of every row, just smoothly up to the very required height. The next point. Let's look at these 2 networks. I'm going to weave this one. As for the next one, it is going to be woven by Lena. I believe everyone has noticed what the zest is. I'm weaving from the right to the left. Lena is weaving from the left to the right. The number of the poles is identical. Now we are going to start weaving and check if there is any difference between our patterns. So, take these 2 yellow tubes and weave printed cotton. We weave it in front of 2, behind 2. Here I've got doubled poles, while there I have single ones, but it doesn't matter, the pattern is going to look the same way. So, weave the printed cotton weave. So, behind these 2 poles, this way, in front of 2, behind 2, in front of 2, behind 2. Press to the basic form thoroughly, the tubes are wet, and continue. I have woven the definite number of the poles. In order to avoid going back and turning the form, I take the next couple of tubes, blue ones, the ones we are going to weave the rope with. We lead the tubes behind in turns above the printed cotton weave and press. This way. When we reach the place where we have finished the printed cotton, we are going to take the yellow tubes again and continue the row up to the end. So, look, we are weaving the first row up to the end. The printed cotton is still woven with the yellow tubes, followed by the blue ones. Now, here is the starting point of the row. Here I lead behind 2 and lift as high as the thickness of the tubes is. The shifting of the height is barely there, so when the article is big enough it will be almost unseen. Here I go behind 2, in front of 2 again, and so on in circles. With each next row, this race will be less and less visible, and the blue tubes will go their way as well. You see, there is some shifting of my double tubes to the left already. So, Lena and I have woven about 4 rows, each of us. So look at our basic color and these stripes. I've got them shifting towards the left. As for Lena, hers are shifting to the right. It means that the direction of the shifting depends on the direction we are weaving toward. Besides, the direction also depends on the number of the poles. In many other patterns where the number of the poles is divisible by 4 plus or minus 1, the patterns look different as well. Many weavers ask questions. That's why I'd like to propose you a kind of scheme for calculating and weaving based on this very number of the poles. So let's look what our pattern depends on. It depends on 3 basic factors. The first one is the direction of weaving. The second one is the number of the poles. And the third one is the type of weaving. Now we are talking about our pattern. In our case, the basic type of weaving is printed cotton. Printed cotton can be woven in the only possible way. If the basic type of weaving is rope, it can be either direct or opposite. So, for the other types of weaving, different combinations are possible. But in our case, the type of weaving doesn't play any role for us. Now the number of the poles. As I have said, it has to be odd. We can get it by taking the number of the poles divisible by 4 plus or minus 1. Let's examine the particular example. For example, 36 is divisible by 4, plus 1 is 37, minus 1 is 35, and so on. For example, 24 plus 1 is 25, 24 minus 1 is 23. The direction of the pattern will depend on this factor as well. And now what concerns the main, the direction of the weaving. Lena and I have been weaving in different directions, so here we have 2 different cases as well. Let's examine the way I weave at first. I weave right to left. I mean that all my basic working tubes go from right to left. What am I getting as a result? Examining our pattern. Here are my poles. We have 2 in front, 2 behind. The front ones I'm going to define with a direct line, the behind ones with a bow line. So 2 tubes go in front, 2 ones behind. And this way up to the end of the row. If the number of my poles is divisible 4, for example 24, then I will finish with 2 tubes behind. And again 2 in front, 2 behind, and so on. If I engage 1 pole fewer, then when I finish a row, I had to weave 2 behind. So here is 1 pole, and I engage the second pole from behind, and then I will engage the next pole in front. You see, it shifts. We weave the row in circle, the next one is going this way as well. So this way I will get my weaving shift to the left. So we have examined the case when we have 1 pole fewer. Now let's check what it is going to be if there are 1 pole more. Again, I have drawn the number of the poles. If it is divisible by 4, 2 in front, 2 behind, and 2 behind at the end. If I add 1 pole, after I have woven 2 behind, I'm going to start weaving 2 in front, not from my pole, but 1 pole earlier, here. And then there will be 2 behind again, and so on and so forth. And in this case my pattern will shift to the right. In case we weave left to right, the result will be opposite. With a number of the poles divisible by 4 minus 1, the stripes will be directed to the right, like in Lena's case. If it is divisible 4 plus 1, the stripes will be directed to the left. And as I have already mentioned, in this case we weave in the technique of printed cotton, which can be woven in the only possible way. When we weave in the technique of rope, our stitches lay a bit slantwise. The way the stitches lay will depend on the type of rope we engage, direct or opposite, but it doesn't concern this particular pattern. I have explained it just because many weavers wonder which kind of pattern they are going to get. They do take the number of the poles divisible 4 plus minus 1, but their pattern looks completely different. In my previous tutorial, I have shown you the way to weave a volumetric rope, so you can apply the same calculation scheme to that kind of pattern as well, and you will know in advance what your pattern is going to look like, in which direction your stripes will be sent, and so on. Actually, that's all. If you have any questions, feel free to contact Lena on her site. Lena and Ray will be happy to answer you. They are always glad to see you. Get in touch as often as you can. Good luck and good mood to all of you. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye. See you.